Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Golden Child. I think that this movie could quite possibly be close to Eddie Murphy's most funny performances. Man, do I really just. I really like the approach that Eddie Murphy kind of delivers with this movie. Some stuff might have been improvised, and it kind of feels that way. It kind of feels like Eddie was probably put onto the spot and was just like, but a lot of other times, like, man, was this just like a very interesting journey that this movie goes into. Um, a lot of people could probably say, like, for me, I could probably say that this is probably Eddie Murphy's funniest performance for me, but also I think maybe Beverly Hills Cop does win a lot of people over. How can not anybody fall for that good old joke of we're not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe, and then like Eddie Murphy goes off and just like makes a joke out of how like they pronounce it, and like you, and how like they have to like change how they pronounce it and whatever in that film. The Golden Child is just a it's just an odd movie. To me, this kind of feels like it starts to get into the Big Trouble in Little China kind of territory for Eddie Murphy, where like you kind of rip this guy out of nowhere, force him to go to Tibet, force to get this bizarrish dagger to try. And by the way, this dagger in this movie looks very similar to the dagger in the movie The Shadow. And I think more than likely, when I probably talked about the movie The Shadow, I probably talked about the dagger probably looking like from the movie Golden Child. But if I didn't, it doesn't matter because basically it looks one and the same. It kind of looks like they have a standard for blades, and like basically that's it. Or daggers in this movie, not blades. Um, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I laugh during it. It's a real fun like thing. Uh, you can't help but laugh at the moment, especially when Eddie Murphy is consistently ribbing Charles Dance's character, or Sardan Noopse. Sardan Noopse. My dear sweet Sodom Noopsie. Or Noop, like his name is Noopsa, but he calls him Noopsy. Noopsa, Sada Noopsa, and he calls him my dear sweet brother Sada Noopsy. But yeah, like we have a lot of people on their A game in this movie. Like we have these these really just decent actors that are just having to deal with a lot of what Eddie Murphy is just bringing to the table on whatever day. There is bits and pieces of this that I just thought were like, why was this important to the film? Uh, like I didn't quite understand the whole like biker gang thing. I didn't understand that whole scene. They probably could have skipped to like through that whole thing and just kind of gotten right into like what is to happen right after that. Like I felt like that was just kind of like a biting for time. Uh, really, Uh, I did think it was interesting. A lot of people would immediately probably think that the golden child was actually a boy in this movie. Actually, it was a female. It seems that years later, both Eddie Murphy and the girl who had played the golden child, which is the JL uh, Reate, Reat, Riete. I'm probably ill pronouncing that, so I'm going to stop right now. JL, the Golden Child, the person who played the Golden Child. Yeah, I think a lot of people for the longest time were thinking that it was a boy, but actually it was a girl, which I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like nobody really knew until years later, whichever, until like the person really came out in the limelight, and like both Eddie and JL were like taking photos together and like, hey, yeah, they've reunited after so many years. Like, I wonder what their dialogue was with one another about, kind of like reminiscing about what they had done in that film, or maybe just reminiscing about just their lives, which would be interesting. But yeah, so uh like I say that this movie has like a bit of like Big Trouble in Little China kind of thing, just because it kind of takes a lot of odd directions. And like we also have in this movie a woman that is to be consistently silhouetted because she is like behind this clothing rack like thing, where she is to talk to Eddie Murphy and talk in very vague like tones, where Eddie's just like, what the heck are you even talking about? Like, am I ever gonna get an answer from you? Like, to the point to where eventually Eddie gets frustrated with her and eventually just really legitimately wants answers, but this girl talks in riddles and it gets annoying. Uh, Eddie also does kind of revisit something that he had done in 48 Hours, and he does that here, which I thought was funny. Uh, but, anyways, a lot of people could be asking immediately, hey, where can I see this movie? Because, hey, I do remember this film, but it's been a while. Where is an easy way for me to say that I've seen this movie without any kind of fees of any sorts? Well, before I tee this movie up and tell everybody kind of the rest of what's going on here, go ahead and check this movie out either on Fox HD Movies. The logo will say that, but the app won't say that. But if you actually search that in the Google Play options, like the Google Play search engine, more than likely that app should pop up fairly well. If not, it'll probably say play 1080p movies, and that should pop up fairly easily as well. Also, there is another app I've been consistently called C Movies. The letter C and then movies. Uh, Really, you should be able to see this movie either one or the other app, or there, in fact, you can probably go into whatever Amazon or whichever and probably see where exactly you can watch it from that, because I'm sure it probably has some kind of subscription like thing for that to go into and do that if that's what you want to do. So, going into this movie, so what's the tee up of this film? So the tee up is the fact that uh, Eddie Murphy's character, who is actually Chandler Jamal, I want to say Jamal, but it's probably Jamel. So Chandler is to be a man who is a person that consistently looks for lost children, even so much so that he goes on TV to try and find these children. So while Chandler is to be doing this TV spot of trying to find this lost child, we immediately have Keen Nang Key, who is to spot this man and just be like, this has got to be the chosen one. This obviously is a man who spent his whole entire life looking for lost children. So now it is time for him to find the golden child who has gone missing because there have been a demon and his minions going and stealing the golden child from its temple and trying to destroy this golden child by having evil circle around it and eventually consistently try to feed it blood through oatmeal. And so uh, the Sardanupsa is a person who is to try and get the dagger that is to eventually slay the golden child. Sardo makes a bargain with Chandler that he wants the dagger and he'll trade the child for it, but really that's not actually the play. The real play is that Sardo wants the dagger to stab into the child to kill the child off, and Chandler is supposed to prevent that. Chandler is supposed to protect the golden child, and Chandler is to eventually also have fun along the way. Man, the way that they put Chandler in that spot where he has to go and actually get the dagger. Oh my god, I love that scene every time. Really, we have like so much jokes being done by Eddie Murphy's character, but also like I just like the visual of this spot. Like, man, is this just uh like it's really fun. I enjoy it, and really I thought that that movie was or that spot of the movie was very iconic, like very memorable. Like if you don't remember a bulk of what happens in The Golden Child, you'll probably remember how Eddie Murphy at least gets the dagger in this film. So with that said, let's get into spoiler times about this movie. I apologize for normally I would go in a 5 minute rant, but I'm kind of doubling it up lately. I don't know why, but I just kind of get enthralled about a movie, and then all of a sudden I just the brain continues to churn. So, with that said, I think it's time to say, I want the knife, please. So, let's get into that coveted double five time territory because I think it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So, like I had said, kind of teeing it up a little bit. So, the we have Sardo that is to go along with some minions of his that is to be Till and Till Fu, I think Tommy Tong, and I believe there is a guy named I think Kun or Khan, where I think he ends up actually getting touched. Khan or Han, Khan. I'm gonna say Khan, and I'm probably gonna ill pronounce that. Khan is the guy that seems to be the big muscular guy that eventually ends up getting accidentally touched by the Golden Child and starts defending the Golden Child, and so all of the other like minions of Sardo, uh, they start having to kill their own person to try and get the Golden Child. So we have this temple of monks that are all going and doing their prayer for the day. And so while that is going on, we see Sardo and his men go and start killing off numerous people to make their way to this temple. So all the minions of Sardo are to go and kill all of these monks off, sadly, and then take a interesting looking cage apparatus like thing, like they have to like open it up and then lock it back into place. So that way the golden child can like fit under like underneath this bizarre locking cage thing. So the golden child is to touch one of the minions, and of course, what I had said earlier. So they get the golden child and they take him away to this spot where they are going to have him set there and have this like this pentagram or this symbol of sorts being around him, and he is to be surrounded by four different people of evil, I guess, to weaken him. And so this kid is supposed to have oatmeal that has blood inside it, and that's where Chandler comes in. So Chandler is looking for a little girl. So, and I'm trying to find the little girl's name. Oh my god. I'm gonna pause here to find the little girl's name. The girl's name was Cheryl Mosley. I'm like, yeah, out of all the names, out of all the things to memorize, yeah, the missing girl's name wasn't coming up on IMDb or anywhere. So, Eddie Murphy is to look for this girl who is Cheryl Mosby, and so Eddie Murphy or Chandler is to go on TV to try to get this information out there. Trying to go on TV, and this TV host the entire time is hogging the spotlight consistently. We have this TV host that is like consistently like doing this like back and forth thing with the microphone, and so Chandler is consistently trying to give some information about this person, and we just have the host that is consistently interrupting him with some kind of stupid question. Like, what's going to happen when you find her? Well, that's great that you that you mentioned that. I've always wanted to find women and lost girls and everything like that and help people out and blah blah. Like how long have you been doing this for? And so like this host goes into any number of questions besides the simple fact that this guy just wanted to just go on there and mention that this is the lost girl, that like describing her, and mentions a number where he could be reached if anyone is to find out information of this girl. So Chandler is to basically be like battling with this TV host for the mic, and so Chandler just grabs it so that way he can get his information out there, and then he hands it back to the TV host saying, "Okay, now you can go and talk to this person with this tortoise or this other guy here." And so Chandler just completely walks off set and leaves. So Ki Nang is to watch this TV spot and realize that this guy has to be the chosen one that is going to find the golden child. Any kind of prophecy-ish like names that we can have in here? Because really, Ki is realizing that this guy is intertwined with the Golden Child case, because Mosley is or was this girl that was to eventually be sacrificed in order to have blood for the Golden Child in his oatmeal. And so eventually there are detectives that are to give Chandler a heads up that they had found his girl. And so Chandler is to go and find the girl who is sadly dead, and is to kind of take photos of her as, I guess, proof to showcase that, yes, she is dead, but he had found this girl. He took kind of photos of her, like certain tattoos and stuff like that that she has. And Chandler also goes into the home of which that she had been in, and he is to see a thing of oatmeal there. He is to press on the oatmeal, and all of a sudden there is blood coming out of it, and so Chandler is also to take a photo of that, not quite understanding what the heck that is. So after this case is done and over with, we have Key that is to introduce herself to Eddie, Eddie's character, and mentioned that his case and her case are connected together, and that Eddie is the chosen one to be able uh, to obtain the golden child because he is the one person who has spent his life trying to find lost children. And so it's obvious that this guy is the guy to get the golden child. So Chandler is to get a tip that someone knows um, where exactly the people who had taken Mosley was. So Chandler goes and tracks these people down, and it ends up being a biker gang. And Chandler goes into this home and kind of looks around, and is to all of a sudden have all these biker gangs arrive in this home. Chandler told Key to stay in their car, but she doesn't. She goes and helps him out, and so Chandler now has to fight a bunch of these biker members and beat the crap out of them. And Key jumps in to also try and help him. And Chandler goes like, "Hey, like you should like I told you to stay in the car. Like if anything, like this is man stuff. Like if anything, I didn't want you to get hurt." And so like this goofy little like protective kind of Chandler against Key to like try to protect her, but uh and so Chandler goes and grabs one of the guys that is getting up, and so Chandler is to ask where this girl had gone, and Chandler is to mention that they had traded this girl to a guy named Tommy Tong for I guess some food and like something else. So they decide, oh, okay, well, we know we need to now go to this Chinese food restaurant, and like I think they got some side of like pork fried rice for her, which I'm like, wow, what a crappy exchange. Like, and Chandler was like, so seriously, you just sold this girl off like she was nothing? It's like, and the guy was like, yeah. So Chandler goes to this Chinese food spot, and so Chandler goes and tries to ask for Tommy Tong, but no one can understand him because no one, of course, knows English in there. But I guess there's a whole reason for that. I'm sure it's probably just like, oh, like anybody asking for somebody, I'm not going to speak English. So Tommy consistently tries to get anybody to tell him where Tommy is, and eventually Tommy does show up. We're here seeing now Chandler now having to figure out a way to defend himself because uh, this Tommy Tong has these dual like sword like things. Like I want to say swords, but immediately I'm gonna feel like someone's gonna correct me. That it's like, oh no, that weapon is actually like this kind of like weapon, and it's not exactly a sword. It's kind of like, and I'll be like, and they'll be like, so immediately, so Tommy Tong is coming at Eddie with a bladed weapon of sorts, and Eddie tries to like toss a table in this guy's way. Eventually, gets a stick that Tommy is to start chopping into shorter pieces, and immediately Chandler is like, "I hate that karate crap," and so Key comes in, flipping her way into this spot, eventually grabbing onto Tommy, flinging him away, and so now we have, for the second time, Key rushing in to try and save Eddie because she disobeyed orders, because Eddie had told her when they were there that, you know what stay in the car means, stay in the car, but she didn't do it. But luckily it saved his bacon, so it is what it is. Tommy Tong runs away and eventually is to go into this back dark alley where Tardo Numspa is to greet him in this alley. He is to be a rat, and then all of a sudden he turns into normal size Sardo. He kills Tommy Tong and then reverts back to a rat and then skates away. Sardo, after this whole thing, is to eventually go and talk to his superior, which is, I'm assuming, the devil. The funny thing is we have this this real, if you guys have ever seen the John Leguizamo movie Spawn, the movie Spawn, the when Sardo is to go to this hell part, man, does the devil sound just like the devil in Spawn, and also the hell there looks very familiar to the hell in Spawn. I'm like, am I gonna get some weird dog looking devilish character? And because that's what immediately it sounded like, and that's what immediately it looked like. And plus also, we bizarrely, as Sardo was kind of pretty close up onto the screen, but then all of a sudden, bizarrely, they had to pan out of hell as if we were going to see something, but no, we were just supposed to see hell from a further part away, which actually makes no sense, and I don't think is something I really should have cared about seeing, but I guess that's just a part of the movie. So Sardo is to talk to the devil, and the devil is to mention how really Sardo's next plan is to try to persuade the chosen one to get the dagger, so that way Sardo can kill the golden child with the dagger. That's the key thing here. That's going to be the thing where Sardo is going to come into Chandler's dreams and basically try to give him nightmares until Chandler goes to Tibet and get this dagger. So both Chandler and eventually Key arrive to find Tommy Ton. So Key is kind of confused about what had transpired here, with Tommy now dead off to the side. And Chandler says, dude, this guy was already dead when I got here. I think he got so afraid of me running up to him that he just decided to take his own life. And Key is like, really? And Chandler's like, what, you didn't buy that? And Key's like, no. And Chandler's like, me neither. So, so that kind of resolves that whole thing where it just seems like they're not going to be able to get any real true answers out of this. So, pushing on to just go to the Golden Child case. So, Key is telling Chandler that he is to go to Tibet, and Chandler is like, I don't want to go to Tibet. It's cold in Tibet. I'm like, I'm not, no. If anything, we can just stay here where it's nice and hot. And because immediately, if I'm going to go to Tibet and it's cold, we're going to go right back here. But Chandler is kind of forced to have to go and get this dagger, because Chandler is to eventually go and sleep, to have his dreams be haunted by this Sardo Noopspa. So, or Noopsy. I've been probably ill pronouncing it this entire time, but but it's what it is. So, uh, Chandler is to have a dream that he is to all of a sudden be bizarrely on this sitcom like thing. Every time Chandler is to do a joke, they pan to this audience that is to laugh at him. So, all of a sudden, we are to have Chandler kind of walking through this home to eventually have Sardo, who is to appear here, and Chandler is like, okay, this is kind of like out of place to my normal dreams. And Sardo is like, well, yeah, I kind of summoned you here, like so that way I can have a word with you. Plus, also, they brand him with the dagger onto his arm to make him realize that all that he is to have a conversation with Sardo, all this is to be a real happening. And so when Chandler is to wake up, he is to see the dagger tattoo on his arm, as a remembrance. So Sardo is to convince Chandler that he needs to go to Tibet and get this dagger. And we have also that it seems that some of the minions uh of Chandler appear, and that is when Chandler's like, okay, like this is like, if I didn't think that this was a dream, I do think that this is a dream now, because like your minions like look so like goofy looking, like especially Fu that looks like a monkey boy, where Chandler's like, hey man, get your monkey out of here. Like, this is obviously a dream because you guys look too goofy to be anything from a reality standpoint. So Sardo is to tell Chandler what he is to do, to get the dagger, and like after that, there's these spots where like Sardo is to clap, because there's an applause button going on, applauding for Chandler's goofiness, or uh, because Sardo tells Chandler exactly what to do, and Chandler tells him, "Well, you know what? Since this is a dream, like I can say anything here, right? So I'm gonna tell you to kiss my ass. I'm gonna tell you to kiss my ass, and you're going to be okay with that, because this is a dream. Like I'm gonna tell you, I'm not going to do this." But the more and more it feels like Chandler has to do this, either way. Like maybe not for Sardo, but maybe for himself, or maybe for Key. So Sardo lays this out, and eventually also Chandler is to spot Key and have to rescue her. Evidently, she was tied up via bizarrely toilet paper. I guess to kind of joke about like how like flimsy it was that this person was to be tied up, and I guess like probably Eddie wasn't supposed to mention that it was toilet paper, but I guess like they just took that take because they're like, oh man, don't ruin it that it's toilet paper. I bet Eddie was like, shut up, man. Like, dude, I'm improvising so much shit probably in this movie. Like, come on. I'm apologizing for how much I'm cussing here, but if anyways, once the one flies, I try to Like I'm just like, like okay, I'm gonna try to cuss less. So so Chandler frees Key, and it seems that they're going to have this like romantic getaway after this moment is to happen. But eventually, Chandler is to consistently get attacked by Sardo's minions to wake him up. And so Chandler is to see the dagger tattoo or the dagger mark on his arm. So Key is to take Chandler to this woman that is to basically just talk to him in riddles, to where we have Chandler who's kind of getting annoyed with the fact that she is talking in so much like vagueness. So so Chandler and Key go to this Dr. Hong, and this Dr. Hong is to take these people uh, to Kala, and Kala is to kind of tell them how like what they're supposed to do, and Kala is just talking in riddles, to where really the entire time Chandler is just making fun of Kala, mentioning that Kala needs to go out and needs to stop hiding behind her silhouettes and whatever. Like she needs to like get out and stop watching so many soap operas and like all this stuff, which I thought was hilarious. Um, Really, it's honestly kind of funny. So Kala, actually, the voice of Kala isn't like in IMDb. There's a part for Kala's voice, so evidently, like the person that was playing Kala didn't do the voice. She just did the way she looked, and then they just voiced the thing in later or whatever, or they voiced the thing during. So Chandler eventually is pushed to go to Tibet because this isn't going to end until like one or the other person is going to persuade Chandler to go to Tibet to get this dagger. So Chandler is to go to Tibet with Key. So Key once they get to Tibet, and of course, the entire time Chandler is complaining how it's cold there, and he has like really thick like coats and stuff like on, like as almost as if he's like an Eskimo or something. Like to me, like that looks like Eskimo thick like coats and stuff, because really like I'm in Minnesota, so really for me, like I don't think things are as cold as they should be. So that's some like real thick winter clothes on. So Key tells Chandler that he'll let or she'll let him go and kind of look around for an hour. So Chandler goes off and uh, goes and tries to look at trinkets, or goes and tries to like find any kind of like souvenirs that he can have. Chandler eventually is to kind of get persuaded by a man that at first seems to be like this homeless man, and so Chandler gives him some money, but all of a sudden Chandler then is to find that this guy is to sell medallions or amulets. Um, Two different things, amulets. So Chandler immediately says, "Well, hey, how much for the amulet?" So Chandler is to try to like put out his money, and this old man goes and takes the $100 bill and gives Chandler this necklace, the one necklace that actually he did not want. And so Chandler is like, "Hey man, like you took $100, like I'll give you $1 for this, like, and plus also this is not the amulet that you were supposed to give me." So Chandler and this old man keep haggling for this so much so, and plus the old man starts to become really rude towards Chandler to I guess try and run him off. So Chandler just goes and grabs this old man and like wants to just kind of shake the money out of him if that's what it takes. So when Chandler goes and grabs this old man, the old man is to vanish. And so now this whole entire time, Chandler is asking Nee or Key when he is to greet her, "Hey, like, have you seen an old naked man running around with a $100 bill?" And Key is like, "No, but if anything, maybe we can find one for you if that's what you want." and so and so now and so Chandler is just really like going off of this whole like thing uh about the whole like him losing this $100 bill. So both Key and Chandler now have to take a boat out to this like temple esh like thing to see Key's father, which is the same guy as before. It's the old man who is to appear again for Chandler to eventually see and ask for his help. So while they are boating their way to this spot, we have Chandler who's like, "Man, we could have gotten a much better boat if I would have had that $100 on me. Like if that naked man wouldn't have stole my money." Like he just keeps going on and on about that. I don't know how long he probably been making that joke. Plus, also when Chandler was listening to music on the plane, he all of a sudden starts like talking the exact same way of the music, and like he really gets into it. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." Chandler goes into this temple like spot. Key is to ask that they are here for the dagger, and is asking for it. And so the old man goes to Nee and says, or to Nee, I want to say Nee, Key, and says, "Well, that's great and all, but like Chandler has to ask for it." So Chandler, like every time they have to like spin this like bizarrish like golden uh spinner thing that's attached to this like it looks like a like it's really weird, but like there's this like weird little spinner thing that every they have to bat this thing and it spins around, uh and they are to talk until that thing is done spinning. So Chandler is like, "Oh, so I have to ask for it? Oh, great." So we have Chandler treating this like it's a uh like it's a record, and he's like, I want the knife, please." Or he's like, I want the knife. And then the old man says, like, "Ask for it nicely." And so Chandler basically copies what Key does. And so he's like, "I want the knife, please." And so they're like, "Oh, okay, you smart ass." So, so they are to push Chandler on to do his trial. So he is to go through this one darkened room to try and get the dagger. So this is probably the most fun part in this movie and its most iconic part. So let's get to it. So the old man is to mention to Chandler that the water is pure. Do not drop the water and like try to follow the path. So Chandler starts going in here and immediately starts complaining about everything. eventually goes and starts making his run through here, and he's like, "Oh, so you guys are gonna make me think that there is no ground here?" And so Chandler goes and flips a coin and is like, "Huh? Huh? Like, when is it gonna drop?" And so he hears nothing, and he's like, "There's no ground here." Like, I'm gonna fall forever. Like, there's no ground here. So Chandler starts making his way, and then all of a sudden he is to turn back to the entrance of this, and there's this big explosion that is to happen. And Chandler is like, "Well, wait a minute, I thought you guys said to stay on the path." And we consistently have the old man that is to consistently tell Chandler things while he's to do stuff, eventually telling Chandler that eventually it will be okay for him to eventually break the rules. So Chandler goes and is trying as much as humanly possible to not spill this water. Chandler is to eventually go onto this bridge part, which is the most flimsiest thing I think of this whole thing. Chandler is to almost drop the water while on this bridge, so he's like kind of sliding his way on through, like he's not standing on it, he's just kind of like sliding his body through it and trying to continue to hold the water. So Chandler keeps more and more going through this path and makes it to the dagger. And so he's like, "Well, you can't spill the water, and but I can't spill the water, but the fire needs to go out. Fire and water, fire and water. What's the riddle here? What's the catch?" Chandler also asked the old man how many people have gone through this and gotten the dagger, and no one has done it yet. And so Chandler was like, "None, none." And so I'm gonna get this dagger out of any number of people that have done it before. Because evidently Chandler is to be like a pure of heart like guy, so reasonably, like, I guess he's the perfect candidate for this. So Chandler is thinking of the riddle that he had said that the water is pure, and also mentioning that his body is pure. So Chandler decides, well, F it, if I can't spill the water, I'll just drink it. So Chandler is to go and drink the water as he's like tipping the glass to Monty. And so we have Chandler drink the entire water. That takes the entire fire out. And so Chandler is to get the dagger. And immediately after that, he's like, "Ha! I got the dagger! Now turn on some goddamn lights!" Which is the most hilarious scene in this movie. Like, every time I go through this scene, there are moments where I'm laughing, like, hysterically, just because it's a fun scene. It's always fun. So, Chandler is to get the dagger, so immediately the next thing to break into is Chandler is looking on at Key, and so Chandler is kind of asking, like, well, how will I know when when I can really and truly be like in love, or when can I truly be with someone or be with Key, kind of thing. And so the old man goes like, well, you have to go through a number of different kind of Herculean like tasks before you can really truly know that you're in love and that you will really truly be with someone. And also, the old man tells Chandler, also, you need to be pure during this whole entire trial. And Chandler's like, "Oh, so you mean pure, like I can't, like, bump uglies? Like, I can't put the hot dog in the bun? I can't go and just, giggly 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 goo?" And the old man is like, "Well, no, you can't." I added a bunch of things in as a joke, and then it kind of got old. It got really old. So the old man eventually is to go and do one thing. He is to pick his nose and then kind of wipe the booger on his shirt. And so while while Chandler is to walk off, or while the old man is to walk off and Chandler is to just kind of watch him walk off, he's like, "Hey man, like get the booger off your coat before it freezes and like you cut yourself." So the old man is to go to Key and to talk to her, and it seems like Key has a bunch of hesitations about falling for Chandler, and the old man is like, you know what, I actually really like this guy. He's really funny and he's really fun, and like Key is coming up with all these reasons why she can't really like him, and the old man is coming up with every opposite thing where it's like, well, if you asked him, he will jump over backwards for you, and this and that, he will protect you, he will uh in all these kinds of things. And so Key is kind of very hesitant about falling for Chandler, but the old man is to give Key her his blessing if Key is to eventually decide on wanting to be with Chandler. And so they now have the dagger, and now they have to be able to get back to America to fight off the demon and also get that golden child like guy, that buddy, that person. So Chandler is like, dude, there is going to be no way that I'm going to be able through this airport to sneak out of here with this dagger. There's going to be no possible way. And Key is like, I think there will be a way. I think there's something that will happen. So Key goes off and gets a private screening for her to get like a pat down, and Chandler's like, dude, there's no way. There's no. So Chandler goes and finds that the guy next to him, who evidently is an American, and Chandler's like, "Oh my God, another American citizen!" Like he hugs him. He's like, "Oh my God." Chandler goes and puts the dagger in this guy that he calls Freddy's pocket. So Freddy eventually is to go through the metal detector, and he is to go off. And so Chandler goes behind him and tosses him into the ground, and Chandler pretends that he is some artifact federal agent, and that Freddy, the douchebag Freddy, Freddy, I hate you, Freddy! Freddy, get out of here, Freddy! Freddy, you piece of garbage! And so Chandler keeps waving his wallet around, pretending that he's some artifact, federal agent or whatever, to try and grab this artifact that is the dagger from Freddy, and to also say that he's like, yeah, like, I'm this agent and I'm here for this dagger, and now I'm going to go on this airplane and blah, 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 to make sure that the right people get this dagger, blah, blah, blah. So, not word for word, Chandler is to eventually thank every single officer that was to be tied to this recapturing of artifact. Basically mentioning how, like, a lot of them have this, like, intelligence or integrity or courage or whatever. Like, you can kind of tell that this spot is really just improvised because it feels like the lines don't feel like it doesn't feel like they've been like pre-done. Like, we had Chandler that was mentioning something about like I can tell that you're intelligent because it seems like you're a person that was born from ignorance and like whatever. It's like, and so like and so Chandler just goes off and he's like, oh, okay, like we're out of here. So they go onto their plane, and when they are to make it onto the airport, we have Sardon Noopspa, who is to try and stop Eddie from getting any further, claiming that Sardo is claiming that Eddie has a artifact and that he wants it to be retrieved from him. And so Chandler really does something smart and is like, well, hey, like, my dear sweet Sodom Noopsie. Like, oh, my brother. So Chandler makes this talk with Sardo. She's like, hey man, like, I actually want them to arrest me. I desperately want them to arrest me because you know what's going to happen when they arrest me? They're going to take this little dagger that I have and they're going to put it into a nice, neat little evidence room with a little tag on it. And you know what? Neither you or I are ever going to see this dagger ever again. And so, you know what? Like, maybe, yeah, maybe you should arrest me, or maybe you should just call this whole thing off and say that you are wrong, so that way the blade is still out there somewhere for either you or I to obtain. So Sardo calls it off, and Chandler's like, oh, my dear sweet brother Sodom Loopsy. and so and so Chandler walks off with the dagger, and there's nothing Sardo can do. So now that Chandler's to have the dagger, we have him at home now having the dagger in some briefcase, and he is now cuffing this thing to his hand. So Key is to ask Chandler, like, hey, do you want to go to bed? And Chandler is like, you know what, I think I actually want to go and sleep on the couch tonight. Really trying to remain pure, but also being, like, severely tempted by Key. So Sardo and his men is to sneak into Chandler's home and try to get after Chandler's briefcase. We have Fu that is trying to grab the briefcase with his bizarrish chain, but that is to not go much of anywhere because Chandler is cuffed to this thing. So where the briefcase goes, Chandler goes. So also, like, I'm probably not going to get to all of the Golden Child and the Till stuff where Till has been with the Golden Child, and Golden Child had made a Pepsi can into some kind of walking and dancing like Pepsi can, where all of a sudden it's like doing this jig and it looks like a stick figure person, and Till is to eventually toss butterflies to the Golden Child, and the Golden Child is to bring these butterflies back to life. And every time Sardo is to give this child this oatmeal, he doesn't eat it, to him just eating these leaves bizarrely. So let's quickly reference all that, but I'm not going to go fully into it. And so Chandler and Nee, or God, Chandler and Key, Nee, Key, he, bleep, 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 that's all, folks. Chandler and Key are going and are trying to fight off Sardo's minions. Unfortunately, like, we have these guys coming in with, like, crossbows and all kinds of dangerous stuff. So Chandler is to try to get away from these minions, and Sardo is to come in with a crossbow. Key is to try to flip her way to try to protect Chandler, and Sardo is to stab knee in the back, or Key in the back. God, I can't stop saying it incorrectly. Key in the back, and so Chandler is holding Key as she is to basically just die. And so here's a really cool line Key delivers. Key mentions that she did not want to spend the night with him to obligate him. She wanted to spend the night with him because she loved him. And so now Chandler's to hold Key in his arms and watch her just die. So Chandler takes Key to Dr. Hong and Kala, and so here's where we have the point where really Chandler gets so just frustrated with Kala. So Dr. Han and Kala is to tell Chandler that there is a possible way for Key to be resurrected, and that is from the Golden Child. And Kala is to talk more in riddles, and to the point where it's just ticking Chandler off. He throws the clothing separator thing, the wall that Kala is to be silhouetted from, and Chandler is to finally see that Kala is actually some half snake, half woman person, and eventually Hong is to help Chandler understand how this person had gotten that way. I'm going to pause here for a second. Reset time. Back we are. So now we're just going to get on into the action scene. Excuse me, the action scene, or what is to be the action scene. So Chandler is to now have to go and find the Golden Child. So Chandler is to desperately want to figure out where the heck this Golden Child is. And so all of a sudden Chandler is to drive around, all of a sudden to see this bird. All of a sudden this bird is to help Chandler figure out where the Golden Child is. It seems like he's following this bird, and this bird is taking him to the Golden Child. It seems that early on in this movie, the Golden Child had resurrected this bird, and so this bird is now helping Chandler find the Golden Child. So Chandler heads right into this place where the Golden Child is located, and so Eddie is to go and take the Golden Child, and is to now try and face Sardo. So Chandler has the dagger still, if people don't realize that he had the dagger. So Chandler goes into Sardo's room, and all of a sudden Sardo is to turn into this demonish like creature, and Chandler is like, well, hey, like, I guess you might be busy, like, I'll come back later. And so Chandler and the Golden Child are to run off into his vehicle, and it seemed that Chandler had forgotten the keys. The Golden Child is to start up the car without there being keys in it, and so Chandler is to quickly drive off with this demon flying behind him and eventually ripping off the roof of this car. So Chandler is scrambling to figure out a location for them to kind of fight this demon off. And so they are to go into this, like, I'll call it this almost like sewer-ish, like, this like kind of like dark and damp location where it seems like they have to get to be under like some bizarre chain to get from underneath this door that is to get them into this kind of seemingly sealed with concrete location. So so the so Sorrow is to crash through this concrete environment. So uh so Chandler is to try to figure out how exactly he can go and stab Sardo, but this just consistently leads to where all this concrete is starting to consistently fall. So Chandler's big concern is to try and protect the Golden Child, and to the point of him just kind of leaving the dagger to be within all this rubble. So the Golden Child and Chandler just run right back into their car to make their way back to where Key is, because Key is to need to get revived before the last bit of sun is to run from off of her body. So these two make it there just in time for, I guess, the little dot of sun to no longer be able to hit Key's body. So it kind of seemed to kind of like vanish the spot of sun. So we just have the Golden Child that is to just cross Key's legs, and the one bit of sunlight is to hit this girl's toe. So the Golden Child is to touch this girl's toe and the sunlight, and this is to revive Key. So Sardo is to reappear to fight Chandler in this spot. And so the Golden Child is to run off to get behind or get underneath this table, and Chandler is trying to like figure out how to take this Sardo out. And so Chandler tries to get to him, but Sardo eventually gets the sword away. Sardo tries to stab Chandler, and the amulet that the old man had gave him shoots out some like laser like thing at Sardo to where he drops the dagger, to where the Golden Child is to use his powers to give the dagger back to Chandler. So Chandler is to stab this Sardo, and so Sardo is to eventually just explode and just be killed off. So now that Chandler has won, basically now it's just kind of the formulaic, well, we gotta figure out how to end this movie, and so the way they are to end this movie is to have Chandler and the Golden Child and Key kind of just walk off, and have kind of the Golden Child in disguise as just a normal kid. So Chandler is to mention that Key needs to go on Star Search and needs to go and have everybody in the audience go and throw rocks at him so he can reflect it all and hit Ed McMahon. And like, I guess Chandler thought that was funny. So like basically that's the end of the movie, and I think with that, that's the end of this review. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.